Hello, Dr. Lamb here again, and we're going to take a special walkthrough of the Field Experience Handbook for your lesson planning and assessing your whole class lesson. Here you can see the handbook, what's enclosed, and we're going to look at each of these specifically in the document. So first you can see we have a lesson plan template overview, and this just gives you the layout of what the lesson plan is going to include. Obviously, general information, context of learning is something you'll be filling out about your field experience. We'll get a little more specific on that in a minute. Then, of course, all your lesson information based on Common Core standards, Next Generation Science standards, Illinois state standards, your central focus, what your lesson's focus is going to be, the learning outcomes you want, all the way through academic language, which we'll be talking more specific about, diverse learner needs. As you look at your field placement classroom, you'll be looking at any kind of specific learning needs the students in that classroom have. That includes any kind of learning disabilities that there might be in a classroom, any 504 plans, IEPs, those things all need to be mentioned. Of course, you will not be using any student names in your filling out that information, but you will include the information. And of course, the lesson implementation assessment. Notice there that you only need to include 2 of those 3 types of assessment. And then post-lesson analysis, you're going to address 3 of these 6 prompts, but please notice that the first 2 are required to be addressed, and then you will choose one of the following 4. All right, let's look specifically at the parts of this lesson plan. First, it mentions the context for learning, and it says to insert your context of learning document here. Okay, so what is the context for learning document? Here we have the context for learning, and notice it is an NTPA document. As I mentioned before, that we are doing everything we can to introduce these things to you during the coursework so that when you get into your student teaching placement and have to do these materials, you won't be seeing them for the first time, and it'll be quite normal for you to be filling them out because you've been doing it all along. So as you can see, this document really does what it says it does. It presents a context for the person reading your lesson plans, looking at your lessons. It gives them the context in which you are presenting those lessons. So it tells you the kind of school, special features that there might be, anything about the school district that's pertinent to your lessons or understanding the students in your classroom. Interventions that you think are necessary or would be necessary in the teaching of this science lesson, and then some specific to your students, how many males, females, any kind of, as I said before, IEPs or 504 plans or other learning needs that have in the classroom. Okay, so that's the context for learning document. It is in the course materials, and you will be completing that document before you do your lesson planning, so that when you come to your lesson plan, you'll just insert that document right here. So we'll see all the information in your context for in your lesson plan. And then under that, you see knowledge of students that will inform your lesson. Okay, please be sure and see the note here at the bottom in red that text, that prompt, is separate from the context for learning. So you don't just insert the context for learning and you're done. You have to then address this prompt about the knowledge of the students to inform your lesson. And you'll respond to each of those prompts there, the questions underneath that title. Okay, so that'll be the start of understanding what your lesson is going to be about, what kind of students you're going to be presenting the lesson to, and what kind of special needs you might be addressing. Here you'll start to identify the science standards that you'll be addressing. You can see here's a link to the next generation science standards as well as the science standards for the Illinois State Board of Education. You can pick your grade level and standards that apply to the lesson you're going to be teaching. Write the standards out here. Then you can see you will identify a central focus, which is a description of the important understandings and core concepts you want the students to develop from this lesson. You'll identify that. In light of the next generation standards, you're to describe the way that those core ideas from your central focus, scientific practices, and other concepts will be manifested in your classroom lesson. State your learning objective that you have for your students in this lesson. Please be sure that it's a clear learning objective that is measurable and will be addressed by your lesson. The context or rationale of your lesson. Why are you choosing the way you're choosing to teach it? If you can link this to any of the research that we discussed, any of the theorists, this would be a great place to do that. Their depth of knowledge, Bloom's taxonomy, trying to identify what level is it that you're trying to reach in your lesson. It may cross over a couple of levels, but what's the ultimate goal? We have a link here also to a depth of knowledge wheel that allows you to be able to assign a value between 1 and 4 to that depth of knowledge. Academic language development. Here you'll address language functions. When we talk education, we talk science. The language you use is quite different from everyday language. This is very similar to what we have already spoken about with the ELL students having a familiar or everyday type of a language different from the language that you speak at school. Well, it's also different from the language you would speak in science. So you need to consider the purpose of the lesson. Are you comparing, describing, analyzing? Think about what language patterns are required to do this. These can often be represented with sentence frames. Also, consider what additional vocabulary is necessary. Are you talking about force? Are you introducing units of force like a Newton? What other vocabulary is necessary? Additional language demands, syntax and or discourse. Of course, we're talking about the oral and written communication of scientific thinking. What do you need to be? What are students going to need to be able to write or speak and able to convey to you their understanding of the science concepts that you're addressing in the lesson? And how are you going to support that? What are the language supports that you're going to provide to help students be able to speak and write in that academic language that you're trying to address in the lesson?